A memorandum issued this week by President Trump mandating the Treasury Department defer the collection and payment of employee payroll taxes has caused a bit of confusion and concern among accountants and businesses. The AICPA submitted a letter to Treasury and the IRS in response requesting additional guidance and clarification and providing specific recommendations. But before I summarize some of those recommendations, let me jump back for a moment and give you some context. Congress and the administration have been discussing what we refer to as Phase 4, some say CARES 2.0, of the coronavirus relief for the country for the last several months. While there's been bipartisan agreement on some issues, the House has prioritized assistance to states, the Senate liability relief, and the administration payroll tax deferral. The discussions failed to yield a compromise, and Congress is now on recess until after Labor Day and facing a limited legislative calendar on return. In response to the stalemate, on August 8th, the president signed 4 executive actions, including a presidential memorandum to allow employees to defer certain payroll tax obligations. The memorandum directs the Treasury Secretary to use his authority to defer the withholding, deposit, and payment of the employee's 6.2% Social Security tax for wages or compensation paid between September 1st and December 31st, 2020. Also, the deferral is limited to any employees whose wages or compensation is generally less than $4,000 payable during any biweekly pay period. Finally, the memo directs Treasury to explore avenues, including legislation, to eliminate the obligation to repay the taxes deferred. In our letter, the AICPA requests that Treasury and the IRS provide guidance to address a number of concerns precipitated by the memorandum. A core issue is that we believe the guidance should state that the deferral is voluntary and that an eligible employee is responsible for making an affirmative election to defer the payroll taxes. There are questions that need to be considered that taxpayers and businesses need guidance on. For example, what if an employee works more than one job? What if the company goes out of business? What if the employee changes jobs? Terms such as eligible employee and wages or compensation need to be defined. Processes for making an affirmative election or even a revocation need clarification. A repayment due date or dates for the deferred taxes and a mechanism for employees to repay the deferred taxes have to be determined. Finally, changes may need to be considered for forms such as the W-2, the 941, or even the 1040. A subsequent announcement by Treasury Secretary Mnuchin indicated that the payroll tax deferral would not be mandatory for employers to implement. Since the taxes being discussed are those imposed on the income of each employee, the big question that we have is whether employees will have the option to opt in or opt out of the program. We believe employees should make the deferral decision and should also be responsible for the repayment. Employers still have to figure out how to implement this policy. But right now, there are still too many unknowns. Stay tuned.